So, I figured I'd give Path of Exile 2 a shot, despite not touching Path of Exile 1 since 2017. Dang, I just aged myself. That was 8 years ago. Feels like I just logged out for a lunch break and came back to an entirely different game. Now, let's be clear. I'm not some Path of Exile guru. I've got a whopping 592 hours in the first game, which in Path of Exile terms means I barely made it past the tutorial before life pulled me away. But hey, that's not going to stop me from diving into the sequel like I know what I'm doing. Now, if you've played Path of Exile 2 before, your gut reaction to the question, can you play a pure medium build in Path of Exile 2? It's probably a confident, yes, of course. But technically, no. No, you cannot. Let me show you why.
Those who drowned in the flooding, suddenly they ain't so dead no more. I would appreciate it if you could...
Now you tell me, does this look like a minion inflicted attack to you? Yeah, me neither. Despite that, we're still going to do the challenge. Just know, it's going to be a tough challenge. Alright, so at this part of the game, since it was the tutorial, they forced me to equip the weapon, but I guarantee you I did not use a weapon the whole run. So after dodging a couple of zombies, I was able to pick up a rattling scepter, which gave me access to my first minions. I leveled up, put a point in my minion damage, found a checkpoint, and headed to my first boss. So after taking down the blow to Miller, I was able to make it into the Clearfell encampment. I went into the Clearfell encampment, made myself familiar with the NPCs. I thought I was able to equip the skeletal sniper with basically a skeletal archer, so I just went ahead and put that on. By having the skeletal sniper, it gave me access to an extra minion, which helped a ton. So I make my way outside the Clearfell. So what you'll notice is anytime I lose my minions, it becomes like a running and dodging simulator. I'm basically vulnerable because I can't do any damage at all. So I eventually just kind of retreated backwards. So I ended up running back into the encampment because I lost all of my minions and I couldn't fight back. I then got the bright idea to go backwards to maybe see if I could, maybe level up backwards, but it was closed off. So I then decided to check with the NPCs to see if I can, possibly buy an extra weapon that might help me survive or do more damage. So I ended up selling for an offhand focus item. It didn't help me much, but it was something. So after preparing myself, I leave the encampment, and to my surprise, the monsters is out there waiting for me. And I get cornered here and take my first death. Lucky for me, I respawned, the monsters reset, and I was good to go. Eventually, I ran into Bella, the Rotten Pack, and she had a lot of nasty ice attacks. Dealing with her, I almost died twice, and it wasn't an easy fight. Actually, it took a very long time. So pretty much I just ran laps around the area, trying to dodge as much ice as possible, almost dying over and over and over, but eventually was able to do it. Even at this point, I accidentally paused the game trying to heal myself. Wrong button. Misclick, guys. And as you can see, successfully was able to take it down. So after taking down my second boss, I was able to make it back in town, sell some items, re-up, and made my way to the mud barrel in which I encountered the Devourer. The battle was very, very easy, just a lot of dodging. I got low on health like once, but other than that, pretty easy. Took it down without problem, and we was off to the races. Defeated the Devourer, sold off junk, checked my skills, and kept it moving. Pushed through the Grailwood, ran into the Hooded One, had a quick chat with Una. Then, Bramble Gas. Boss battle. Oh my goodness. The Bramble Gas. And I'm locked in. Uh-oh. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, good block. And as you can see, I would die here. I came to the realization that this game is basically Dark Souls. Came back, barely dodged, but I took it down. Hey, baby. Hey. Made it to the Red Val. Everything felt smooth. No real trouble with enemies. So then I came across my first Obelisk of Rust. It was pretty easy. Defeated all the enemies, and then I collected the Rune of Power.
Impudent undead.
Got it, baby. Second Obelisk, same deal. OP.
That voice.
Broken. So I finally made it to the final Obelisk of Rust, which triggered a boss battle with the Rust King on the BS. The Rust King, I don't even see him. Where's he at? Oh, oh, oh. This boss was ultimately easy to predict and easy to take down. Sit down, baby. Sit down, baby. So after making light work of the Rust King, I turned in the runes to Renly the blacksmith at the encampment. I bought a rattling sap tray. Seemed minor at first, but then arsonist mean unlock. This thing is a beast. I then headed back to the Grailwood to use the rune spikes to free the hooded one. So I headed back to town. I caught up with Una and the crew. You know, standard quest stuff. Then back to the Grim Tangle. I ended up running into the rotten druid who was casting spells that was twisting everywhere, branches trying to trip me up. Had to stay moving constantly. Fun fight, but definitely kept me on my toes. After the battle, I threw some upgrades on my skeletal snipers to make life easier. Then, straight to the cemetery of the Eternals. Now, nothing crazy happened here, just a lot of kiting while my minions did all the work. It felt good to be the boss. I then eventually made into the mausoleum, and jackpot, I found a hidden staircase full of gold. Of course, I took everything. I decided that this spot was worth farming for resources later. I kept pushing through, and I eventually ran into a boss named Draven. And yeah, League of Legends immediately came to mind. Quick shout out to my League players. Drop your favorite champ in the comments. I'm not gonna lie, Draven had me sweating. Almost died multiple times. I panic pressed escape instead of my heal key. Pure chaos. But after dodging for what felt like forever, he finally went down. I found myself back in the cemetery and checked in with Lachlan. I still needed one more key before opening the gate, so I had to stop at the tomb of the consort. Headed to the tomb of the consort. Honestly, felt just like the mausoleum, nothing too wild. Then I ran into Asenia, and yeah, this boss hurt. Means were doing their job, but I wasn't ready for the traps and the same damage. Second attempt, different story. Figured out the patterns, secured the second key, GG. Back to Lackland to open the gate, and of course, plot twist. He's a boss now. Not a problem though. Just used the gray structure as cover and took him out easy. Quest complete. Off to the hunting grounds. Nothing too crazy here. Cleared an area, let Finn teleport in, got a little lore dump about his past life. So I then decided to leave the hunting grounds and headed for Ogden farmlands. Just a quick stop to grab some quest items from Una. You know, super easy, nothing major here. I turned in the quest, then straight to Ogden Village. I fought my way up to the courtyard of death. It was like massive open space. Yeah, this screams boss fight. Sure. The executioner shows up. Pretty simple fight, but somehow I still almost died. Thankfully, the minions handled business. After beating the executioner, I freed Laertes. We had a small, quick chat. Then I went back to town for some upgrades. I decided to go to Man of Ramparts, but I stopped. Felt like I was skipping too much, so instead of getting ahead of myself, I doubled back to clean up unfinished areas first. I then pushed into Faethorn. Most memorable part about Faethorn, wasting way too much time, killing minions that just would not stay dead. I got overwhelmed at one point, but we made it through. Then I hit Cultist Conquest, which surprised morphed into a boss. The king in a mist. Easy work. I had the better minions. They don't call me the minion master for nothing. After that, I backtracked to Organ Village to grab some quest items for Renly. Took a solid eternity running around before finally Renly's old workshop and snagging the smithing tools. Finally made our way back to Ramparts Manor, nothing too wild here, other than the map feeling massive and the click fatigue setting in heavy. Eventually reached Archon Manor. Now, this place, different story. I could feel the difficulty spike means were getting shredded, and I spent a lot of time running for my life. I ran into Candlemass, the living right. Not a crazy fight, just me bad at dodging, so yeah, died, obviously. But like every boss, took the L, came back, got the W. After that, I ran into some beefy unique enemies, and that eventually gave me some trouble. But after some long fights, I finally reached a checkpoint. Had no clue I was walking straight into the final boss of Act 1. This is the first time I genuinely thought the challenge might be over. Died at least 8 times, but hey, I'll let the clips do the talking. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Count Gianor. You know, they say that it is impossible to beat Geonor with just using minions, but little do they know that I'm the minion master, and this is just what I do. So sit back, relax, and watch me lock in and put this work in. Yes! 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 Oh. After beating Count Geonor, I rode into Act 2. I did some research on proper minion builds because there was no way I was about to deal with that nonsense again. Things were only going to get harder from here on out. Still sticking to the minion damage only challenge, I snagged some solid upgrades through trading. Most importantly, an Oak Sworn shield that gives 50 spirit, meaning more minions on the battlefield. Started exploring this red sanded wasteland and I had to earn my passage by taking down Wrathbreaker. First attempt, I zoned out, no energy shield, one shot. My first Act 2 boss death. Round 2, much easier. Played it safe, cleared out the whole map, and took him down. After the defeat in Wrathbreaker, Zarka gave me access to the caravan. I hopped on, I talked to the Hooded One, and met the new NPCs. The caravan is basically Kill Feral on Wales, letting me fast travel to any quest location in Act 2. First stop was Halani's gate, but the door was sealed.
Why have we stopped?
I used the caravan to hit up Mardon Quarry, fought my way through this abandoned mine. I reached a checkpoint and prepped for the next boss, Ruja Dread Engineer. He had flames, but my minions had heat resistance. I barely broke a sweat. After I beat the Dread Engineer, I had to talk to the Defector. I wrapped up the exploration and got back to the caravan. My next stop was Trader's Passage, leading me to the forgotten prison of the Trader.
Creepers and crawlers in dark. Well, if it isn't the traitor herself. Let's get this over with.
So I was able to make it to the forgotten prison of the Trader, which means it was boss time. Barbala. I actually died 3 times trying to learn her moves on the fly, but once I figured it out, deleted. And as you can see, I died a lot. Confined space.
Keep waiting, then.
Initially, there was just something about her I just couldn't figure out.
An easy distraction.
After beating Barbala, I finally reached Helana's gate. It was not a tough zone, but I did take down a mini boss and got my first unique drop, a fire quiver. Too bad I don't use bows. Maybe next time. I'm not sure what it is with this game and boss fights in tiny rooms, but they nailed it again. The Risen King gave me trouble. My minions were getting clapped. Before I could finish him, dude just dipped. Guess it's a rematch for later.
Make haste! We must not escape! Jarman Ra, the corpse king, is running away. Quickly! He conjures the very sands against us!
So after the Risen King ran away, I found myself back on the caravan. I talked to the NPCs and moved forward with the story.
According to the tales, she is still sealed.
The skeleton city of a once great culture.
I had reached Keth, and at this point, I was just steamrolling through zones. Eventually I had to hunt down some relics that'll give me permanent stat boosts later on. I made it to the lost city and dove deep into the buried shrines. I found a tomb with a checkpoint outside. Always a red flag. I walked downstairs to grab an item and boom, Stone Army wakes up. I almost got trapped, so I spammed the roll button trying to escape. Minions couldn't handle the numbers, so I had to kite like crazy. I then pushed forward into the vestibule of the Reigns. Another boss fight incoming.
They told me you had died.
This big boy loved AoE fire damage, which meant my minions were dropping like flies. I got so close to beating him, but then I died. Twice. Oh my gosh. But hey, like they say, third time's the charm, right? I finally shut him down. I talked to his mother, and she asked me to set her on fire. Yeah, I found this part of the game to be really wild. In return, I got the essence of water. After retrieving the essence of water from the water goddess, I headed back to the caravan, checked out the desert map, and made my way to Mastodon Badlands. I arrived at my location, and just like the other zones, I found the enemies there to be quite easy to take care of. After making my way around the zone, I found myself at the entrance of the bone pits. After defeating a few unique enemies, I managed to pick up my second relic. I spent some extra time running around, farming experience, and then hit a checkpoint what looked like an arena. At this point, I already knew what was up. The boss fight was coming. This one was interesting though. 2-for-1 special, Ancient Steed and the Death Lord. Naturally, I died on my first attempt because I focused on the wrong target. My brain saw a big horse and thought, yeah, that's the threat. Turns out, Death Lord was the real problem. Wow, how did I just randomly die? After adjusting my approach, I went straight for the Death Lord on my second attempt since it was dealing the most damage to my minions. Once it was down, I took out the steed without much trouble. I just got the steed to worry about now. After the fight, I teleported back to the caravan, talked to a few NPCs, and made some adjustments to my minion build. Then, I headed to the Valley of the Titans. At this point, I had finally reached the place where I needed to put my relics in to receive a stat boost. I chose 30% increased charm over 15% increased mana because I wasn't really using mana much. After choosing my relic, I found a collapsed entry, but I can only get in by collecting some seals. Gained access to the Titan Grotto and made my way inside.
This was certainly off limits to mortals.
So I made my way through the Titan Grotto, cutting through enemies without any real challenge. Frozen. I love it, man. I love to see enemies frozen. I feel like eventually I reached the boss of the zone, the Colossus. This thing was massive. Honestly, I enjoyed this fight. Wow. So what's after I took it down, I grabbed the Flame Ruby and moved on. I also managed to pick up my second unique drop, the Busted Great Helm. I went back to the caravan. I crafted a horn that would clear up the sandstorm, the one that the Risen King created to escape. Once I cleared the sandstorm, I headed to the char. I cleared most of the map before finding a final letter written by one of the fallen, Dekhari. Found the guy. Final letter. So I finally decided to double back to a previous boss area that I hadn't tackled yet. This fight wasn't hard, but it was annoying. They had two bosses constantly wiping out my minions and using leaping attacks. After taking them down, I collected my loot and went back to the caravan to show Asala the final letter.
Show me this.
Eventually, I would give the final letter to the right NPC and receive a reward.
Do not speak of its contents. I will burn it when I have the opportunity.
Next, I traveled through the Path of Morning, which led me to another big boss fight. This one wasn't difficult at all, and I actually enjoyed it. What is going on? Almost had me, baby. Almost had me, baby. Almost. Good fight, baby. Good fight. Good fight.
I'll bring you back to serve.
After taking down the boss, I returned to the caravan and spoke to Asala. It was now time to head to Dreadnought.
Never seen. As we speak, it is barreling through the heart of the West.
I finally reached the Dreadnought and took a death after getting overwhelmed by a ton of enemies. After regrouping and clearing the area, I made it to the final boss of Act 2. At first, I couldn't figure out why I kept dying. Once I understood the mechanics, it still felt nearly impossible. I honestly thought about quitting the challenge. I ended up dying 6 or 7 times to this boss. To make things worse, I found out none of my video footage recorded, so I had to fight the boss again just for the challenge and the video. Even on the re-recording, I died 2 more times. Phase 2 was easier to manage, but I still somehow died again during the repeat run. Eventually, I got it done.
It is done.
I managed to beat the boss for a second time. Act 2 was finally over. Now it was time to move on to Act 3. I found myself in the Sandsource Marsh looking for the Zuggurat. I eventually ran into my first area boss there, and honestly, there wasn't much to say. My minions had gotten strong enough to handle everything with ease. After clearing out Sandswept, I made it to the Zuggurat encampment and got acquainted with a few new NPCs. While in the jungle ruins, I came across Cast on Meaning Death. I tested it out, but it was pretty underwhelming. I then reached the den of the Serpent Priestess, interacted with a corpse, and picked up some corpse snake venom. After that, I went back to town to talk to Servi. After turning in the quest item to Servi, I made my way to Azak Bog.
Do you truly believe you can beat the Azap tribe? Do so.
I fought through a ton of enemies and eventually ran into the Bog Witch. It was a pretty simple fight, just had to avoid standing in the fire too long. After taking her down, I went back to the town and chose my reward, a charm that makes me immune to being ignited. I figured this would be crucial for the endgame since a lot of the late game bosses seem to love fire attacks. With that done, I moved into the Camaro wetlands. Once again, no real challenge here. I eventually faced the Camaro. This boss wasn't hard, just annoying. It was great at wiping out my minions and constantly flying around, making it tough to lock down. The Camaro goes down like Frasier. After beating the boss, I made my way into the Quani's machine room and met up with Alva. Before continuing on, I wanted to strengthen my minion army even more, so I decided to take on the Ascended Trials. My goal was to unlock the Inferno Helm, which I did successfully. This was a huge upgrade for the minion owning challenge. After that, I ran into another underwhelming fire boss. No real challenge there. I took it down without any issues. Once I gathered all the cores for the area, I faced off against another boss. This wasn't too difficult either. The minions completely overpowered it without a problem. With that out of the way, I made my way back to the infested barrens, and I reached an area where I had to place the core. This unlocked access to the Matlin waterways. After battling my way through the Matlin waterways and reaching the reservoir mechanism, I drained the water that had been covering the drowned city.
Beyond this sealed door is the temple of the sun god Kopek.
And just like the name suggests, the drowned city was massive. It felt like I was running around forever. After countless battles, I eventually made it to the Molten Vault, where I faced off against the Forest Master. His fight had an interesting gimmick, but overall, there was nothing difficult about taking him down.
Wealth has never inspired me.
So after defeating the Force Masters, I headed back to the Drowned City to explore the remaining area. I got lucky and rolled a +3 to level of minion skills. Eventually, I reached the apex of 5th. and faced off against the Queen of Filth. And yeah, the name definitely fit. But honestly, she didn't stand a chance. My minions tore through her with no issue. After defeating the Queen of Filth, I returned to Alva and made my way into the Temple of Copex. Copex had a very interesting design, where if you got too close to the sun, you take burning damage, so you have to keep to the shadows or keep your distance. I thought I could get around this by equipping the charm that stops you from being ignited that I got in Act 2. It didn't work at all. After avoiding the sun like the plague, I took some stairs and found myself in a battle against the High Priest of the Sun. He was no match as my minion arrows would block out the sun.
Sure, Kopek will love to see you.
Alva would appear and I would then go to ride an elevator that led back to Ziggurat's encampment in which a time portal was created.
The apex! It's opening!
I would enter a time portal going back to the past, reaching the ancient times of the same location that I was in. I would then fight my way through the city and witness Alva getting knocked out by the Viper, in which I end up having to fight. It wasn't a hard battle, but she did manage to escape. Before rushing off to save Alva, I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything in the city first. I managed to get my third unique drop, which turned out to be another quiver. After that, I headed to the Algorat in my efforts to go save Alva. After some easy battles, I found my way into the Black Chambers. I found this place to look very interesting. Something about the ancient civilization getting their hands on alien technology seemed to be a repeating trend in a lot of games. I would finally make my way into the testing pits where Alva was being held captive by the final boss of Act 3.
At the eve of the end.
I thought I had the boss defeated as I got too confident and I died as the boss had a sliver of health left. On his second attempt, I didn't let the same thing happen to me, but turns out the boss ended up having a second phase. He would eventually permanently go down, with the trial to cruel difficulty signifying that I had completed the game and successfully passed my challenge of using minions only. And just like that, we have made it through and we have beating Path of Exile 2 with minions only. I just want to say thank you so much for those who watched up to this point, made it to the end of the video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more challenges. Also leave some challenges you might want to see me do as well, and I'll see what I can do. But I greatly appreciate y'all sticking through it and making it through it to this far, man. Appreciate y'all. Until y'all the next video.